90.1 FM, AM 1020 KDKA. This is Cars, Stars, and everything in between. He is the star. Richard Bazzi, Schultz Ford, SchultzFord.com. I am Bubba from 100.7 Star. And on with us today, Ford Performance, John Clor. Thank you for joining us for Cars, Stars, and everything in between.
It's my pleasure, guys. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, so John, go ahead, Bubba.
I was going to say, so you're a journalist that has owned, raced, and worked and written about Fords and Mustangs for 45 years. Wow.
Yeah, I don't like to talk about that because then people can do the math.
Oh, that's true.
Well, that math is simple. It just translates to old.
Well, that's why.
In my case, it translates to older.
Well, I can still relate though, because I was offering to my bosses I would do a blue mohawk if it made them feel any better.
That's funny.
So John, you are what to the Ford Performance? First of all, a lot of people don't even know that the Ford Performance arm of Ford Division does exist. Can you talk about that?
It's considered the sandbox because we're the guys that have fun. Ford Motor Company's in the business to sell cars and trucks to people, but they also have an entire division and has for many, many, many years. It used to be called Ford Racing, and we would then go take the vehicles that Ford produces and go compete against everybody else. And the old idea was, if you win on Sunday, then you sell on Monday. That was the whole concept behind going out and competing against the world. And it's been like that ever since, although, the things like NASCAR, there's World Cup, there's drag racing, NHRA, there's all kinds of motorsports. But Ford Performance now is the modern day version of Ford Racing. That's about it.
And that's so cool. Again, not a lot of people know it. And I think we need to do, as a company, more in the awareness, because I'm going to come back to some of the things that are going on now. But so Mustang's been in existence for 60 years, and you have been part of this for 45. So it was, that's quite an accomplishment, and I'd be proud if I were you. You have some wonderful things. And tell me what you do with Ford Performance Driving School, John.
Well, it's like that
you do.
It's like that Office Space movie. What is it you'd say that you do around here?
Yeah.
Is that, I'm not the typical guy. I admit. I worked 15 years at the Detroit News, and I wanted to be the auto writer, and the guy wouldn't retire. So I think I left after 14 and a half years, and the guy was 116 years old, and he was still the auto writer. So I moved over to Auto Week magazine. Now that's a car magazine in Detroit for people who don't want to wait all month for their next magazine. These are the crazy people that have to have their auto stuff every week.
Right.
So we did 72 issues instead of 12. And I thought that was the best job in the world. I mean, people would fly us all over the world. We'd drive cars. I'd take a Ferrari home one night and a BMW the next night, Corvette the next night. And the neighbors would come over and say to my wife, "Is your husband a drug dealer?"
That's pretty funny.
But why would you quit that job? Finally, after almost 20 years of being a journalist, quit that job and loving cars, growing up in Detroit as I did, and then go to Ford Motor Company. Well, because secretly I was a closet Ford guy, and I would volunteer to go on every Ford long lead, any Mustang launch, because that's the car I loved. And eventually I had an opportunity when my managing editor went to Ford and became the PR guy for the special vehicle team. I don't know if you guys remember SVT.
SVT, yeah. Yes, SVT. What was it? The popular one.
Well, the Cobra, the Lightning. We did all these great cars. The special vehicle team was a niche marketing group within the company. We were autonomous.
Yep.
And I had my chance to jump ship and go to the coolest group at Ford, where they turned Mustangs into Cobras and F-150s into Lightnings. And those ones are the gas-powered ones, and just make cool cars. And that's why I jumped. And I've been there ever since. Now, yes, SVT, after 10 years or so I was there, got disbanded because we were a bunch of wild, crazy cowboys. And but luckily I was owning the content that we did for the consumers, and they had to push me over to Ford Racing. And there I sat for 10 years putting together a program where we could interact with people who love Ford Performance and race cars. And high performance Fords and Mustangs and Cobras and Lightnings, oh my, and put together a program called Club Connect. And after I got word after 10 years, oh no, Ford Racing is going out of business. I go, really, again? Well, now you're going to be called Ford Performance. So now at Ford Performance, I do two things. During the middle of the week, I run and manage all of the content on fordperformance.com for enthusiasts. We have an entire enthusiast section, if you can believe that. And then in the weekends, I tell my bosses I can't get great stories about Mustang owners. I'm sitting at a desk in Dearborn. So I go all across the country. And that's why I was at Schultz Ford for the big car show out there. And I meet people and I hand out Mustang posters and I get their story. I tell
John, I have to interrupt you very quickly.
Yep.
I have to ask you a question.
Sure.
I was in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina over the weekend of September 6th. And it was a Ford Mustang something. All of Myrtle Beach was nothing but Ford Mustangs everywhere. Now, I drive nothing but a Ford, but I've never actually personally driven a Ford Mustang. But the Enthusiast and this Ford, I mean, imagine all of Myrtle Beach filled with nothing but Mustangs. I mean, traffic was a mess because there's so many Mustangs. Were you there for their Mustang weekend in Myrtle Beach?
We did send, my van was there. We spent... Yeah, we were there. We sent, in fact, my son, who works on the Ford Performance Info Center, was down there, and with the Special Vehicle Registry. That's called Mustang Week, where we take over the entire town, thousands and thousands of people.
It was like nothing I'd ever seen in my entire life. Richard Bazzi, imagine all of Myrtle Beach with nothing. And I tell you, people put some money into those Mustangs.
Oh,
wow.
Gosh. Well, that's the whole point. I mean, thousands of these people. Mustang is a rolling advertisement for Ford Motor Company, and for 60 years, it's been that way. And I tell people when they say, you're the enthusiast, how can you be an enthusiast communications manager? I said, because no other car company has that, because I just don't think they have enough enthusiasts. But if you were in Myrtle Beach, you could see why. Yes,
absolutely. I was there.
Yeah, that's what I do. I interact with all those activities all summer, and I put their stories on the website.
So I'm going to ask you a question before I forget, and it's not linear to the rest of this conversation. What is your favorite Mustang?
Well, I've written a couple Mustang books, and I think in one of them I explained how I fell in love with a 1969 Mach 1. And I think it was the entire overall look of that car.
Was it a fastback?
Yeah, fastback with the shaker, and the rear window louvers and the spoilers, and that to me, I would do candy apple red with the black stripes. That was the car. As a young man, I really wanted that car. But the problem is my dad was a Detroit cop, and I wasn't going to get it.
Now, was that a Shelby? Was that a Shelby, John?
Nope, that's a Mach 1. That's a Ford division car. That was the, known as the poor man Shelby. It had the 428 Cobra jet in it. So you get the motor. You just didn't pay for the Shelby name.
The 428, and that was a 4-speed, 5-speed?
I wanted the top loader 4-speed. Yeah, you can get a 4-speed in that, and that's the one I wanted. And that's the one that's really the car that changed Mustang's personality from just a sporty little four-place car into a muscle car. But when we got the 428, that put us into the big block realm, and we could run with all the big dogs. And
who were the other big dogs at the time?
Well, there were the 396 Chevelles, 427.
I love that car.
Yeah, the 396 Camaro SSs. There were Corvette 427. The Rat motors were out. Street Hemis were out, 426s. And, we had to get into the fours to, the 428 Cobra Jet was the only time we actually played with those boys. And it changed Mustang's personality. Just like when I was at SVT, and our manager, John Coletti, our chief engineer, put a supercharger on the Cobra, and it changed Mustangs forever with supercharging. Those are the days of, crossing that line, jumping the Grand Canyon, if you will, and making Mustang in its own realm of a supercar.
All right, when we come back, we'll take a break. When we come back, more with John Clor. This is Cars, Stars, and everything in between on 100.1 FM, AM 1020, KDKA.
John, we don't have enough time.
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, you guys, just talking about your show and the people I met at your show and what we do. Ford's the only company that does this. Can you imagine?
But you see, again, it's all product driven.
Yeah.
If you have an exciting product, if you have something to talk about.
Richard, the passion for the people that I saw in Myrtle Beach for their Mustangs was out of bounds, and they would just drive up and down, and one was nicer than the next.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
Bubba
well,
from all
Chelsea-
over the country. They weren't just from Myrtle Beach. They came
So
from everywhere.
Chelsea met John at the Mustang show that we just had in Harmerville. When was that?
Just a month ago.
Just a month ago. And the number of people, like, I think it's the best turnout we've had, right?
Yeah, my tent was swamped all day long.
Was it
All
really?
day long.
All right.
No, well, go ahead. I
Here we
have
go.
so many other questions.
All right. I'll stay out of your way.
No, you don't have to stay out of my way. Get in my way.
100.1 FM, AM 1020 KDK. This is Cars, Stars, and everything in between. He's the star, Richard Bazzi, Schultz Ford, SchultzFord.com. I'm Bubba from 100.7 Star. And boy, do we have a star. If you love Mustangs, if you love Ford, John Clor, you are a star when it comes to Mustangs and Ford. There's no doubt about that.
Well, I don't know about that. You know, Richard's the star for me, inviting me on and getting to talk about my favorite thing.
No. Well, you've really impressed Chelsea when you guys met at the Harmerville car show. And I mean, there's so many, like, I could ask myself what would be my favorite Mustang. I still have a passion for the 64 and a half. I would love to have a white on white 64 and a half Mustang convertible. That would be, I love that. But there was a TV show called Power, and one of the villains drove a 68 Mustang that I really liked also. It's hard to pick. I didn't like when they got away from what they really were. I didn't like that. But I am a car nut. I mean, I really am. I love cars. I'm in the right business for me. But as a matter of fact, I was going to talk about this. I bought 2 seats at Ford Performance Driving School. Are you aware of that?
No, I'm glad you got down there, though.
No, I didn't. I didn't go. It was like they're 3 years old and they're still sitting there. I hope there's still a record, because now, as I find out and see, I think we need to do a better job of letting the world know about what this all is. I really do. Internally, externally, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. For example, I did not know that if you buy an Explorer ST, if you buy a Bronco, well, that's a different experience, but that's a Bronco experience. But if you buy these things, a GTD, Mustang, a Dark Horse, you get a Ford Performance School, right?
Absolutely. And why buy a car with that much capability if you can't learn how to use it or even understand?
And the driving school was in the mecca of auto racing at Charlotte, North Carolina.
Yeah, Charlotte Motor Speedway. And, if I'm sorry you didn't get a chance to take it. Going to the Ford Performance Driving School is the most fun you can have with your clothes on.
Well,
it's just a blast. And by the way, really, you're in somebody else's Mustang. You're using up somebody else's tires. You got professional race car drivers showing you where the apexes are, how to turn in. You learn the capability of the car and you learn how to drive. You think you know how to drive until you go to the driving school. Then, oh my gosh, then you realize how fantastic these modern day Mustangs really are, even compared to the wonderful cars we loved back in the 60s.
I went to the Jim Russell British School of Motor Racing when Riverside Raceway existed.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to that, and I kept going. And then I became, I don't even know, I used to have a fire suit. And it's crazy. I couldn't wait to put my name on it. I got a white one. It was a white one. Couldn't wait to see that. And
but let's go out and paint his name over the top of his door.
I agree. I'm there. Just you don't get to ask me twice.
It was the coolest experience. Now, that was open wheel.
Yeah.
So that scared me a little bit.
Yeah, that's a little different.
That scared me a little bit.
SVT sent us all to the Bondurant School of High Performance Driving when they were out in Arizona.
Yeah, they moved from Riverside to Arizona.
Yeah, he did all that. We did evasive driving with the Crown Vics, and but we at least got to go in Cobras. The open wheel, that's a whole nother animal.
What is the fastest you've ever driven, John Clor? And then I'll ask the same question to Richard Bazzi. Fastest you've ever personally driven?
162 miles an hour.
Oh my gosh, Richard.
Not that much. Probably, I'd say probably 120, probably 125.
Jeez.
And then I let off. I have to let off because I start to think, who put these tires on?
Oh, I thought you started to think that those flashing lights in the rearview mirror would have been.
No,
Not the right
I'm
place to be
probably
speeding.
125, and then that was just a hit it and quit it. Yeah, I didn't do that for long. I really didn't. It scared me. And I asked Mario Andretti that question.
Oh yeah,
And
you did. I was
do you,
there.
do you remember?
Oh
And
yeah.
I asked Mario that question, and he said, if you have that fear, you shouldn't drive.
Yeah.
You shouldn't race.
Hey, John, I have a question for you. And
Sure.
I just thought about this. Why is the Mustang so special?
Great
It's
question.
it is, but in a way it isn't. I'm fortunate enough to know personally Hal Sperlich, who invented the Mustang, the father of the Mustang. He was the idea guy for Lee Iacocca, and God bless Lee Iacocca somehow was able to sell that concept of Mustang to Henry Ford II, because nobody wanted another new car 3 years after we buried the Edsel. But somehow Iacocca, the greatest salesman in the world, got Ford to build it. And I spent 10 years becoming a great friend of the guy who designed the original Mustang, Gail Halderman, who created this beautiful shape. And it was a matter of timing, marketing, and I believe passion, because Gail drew something that looked like nothing else
Right.
on the planet. And Sperlich said it best. He said, when they looked at that car, they go, wow, what's that? I want one of those. And then when they showed the price, wow, I can afford it. And that became an instant way, because that time of America's society was in that point where we needed a second car. Women were now in the marketplace for a car because they were out working, and we had the family station wagon, but we wanted something cool and something that was affordable, but something beautiful. And from day one, 60 years later, every Mustang, including the Mustang IIs, the Fox bodies, everything that we sold connected with buyers in America. And that's why we've got more than 10 million of them out there after 60 years.
Now that's amazing. That's actually an amazing number. I want to talk about Ford versus Ferrari. I want to talk about Jim Farley, who is not just our CEO. He is an absolute enthusiast who built a Mustang as he was going through college, and he rebuilt one. And I think it's black, but he drives, he races. I wonder if he's ever been through the Ford Performance School.
Yes, he has. Yep, he has. He funding that was, I remember when he was just on the marketing side before he became CEO, and when we were broke, everybody else was going bankrupt, and we were planning to build the Boss 302, and he said, let's do it. We didn't have two nickels to rub together, and he wanted to do that car. So you could tell, when you push people's buttons, especially with a car like Mustang, and my old saying is, everyone has a Mustang story, and you don't ever have to have owned one, liked them. That's the difference between Mustang and everything else, because it could have been the neighbor, the guy in the high school, the kid down the street, your uncle, the guy who just passed you at 80 miles an hour. Everyone has a Mustang story as opposed to any other car out there. And that's because it leaves an indelible mark on you. It's such a part of America's background, and it's the freedom.
It's part of our fiber.
Yeah, it really is. It really signifies.
And you know what? Jim Farley recognizes that.
Yeah.
And he leverages that, like with our new GTD Mustang. I mean, that thing is insane, right? And I'm fortunate that I will be getting one, but wow. It's unbelievable. What color should I get? Should I get white? White with blue?
You can now pick your own livery, and have Camilo Pardo paint it, and now that car, what a special car, and especially if Mr. Farley is able to put the team together at Ford Performance to go out there at Le Mans and beat Ferrari with a Mustang.
So listen, my question about Ford versus Ferrari, what did you think when you saw that movie?
Well, there was some liberties. I'm a Mustang historian. I've written a couple books. I've been on the History Channel. I was in a Hollywood movie called A Faster Horse about Mustang. I mean, I'm into the accuracy of that, and there was some Hollywood in it. But I think the movie really captured the passion behind what it took to go and do the impossible, which was to go after the lofty Ferrari in their own backyard with just a skunk works bunch of guys and with a Ford engine and a crazy looking chassis that Holman Moody put together. What a phenomenal piece of American history that movie is.
I'm going to have to go back and rewatch it, because I think you give it a different perspective, even talking about your friend who was one of the designers. And who was that?
Gail Halderman drew the original Mustang.
Was he in the movie?
No.
Oh, that's interesting. I wonder why.
He was in the Faster Horse movie, the real star, because the Hollywood uses actors
Right.
to portray people. They don't use the real people. But Gail just passed away about 4 years ago.
And what's the name of that movie?
It's called A Faster Horse. It's the making of the S550 Mustang. It takes you inside a Ford Motor Company. Hollywood came in and wanted to see, what's this Mustang and how does Ford go about making a new one? And I had a cameo in it, and a lot of people that are involved in the program for years and years, all the people that built the Mustang that you like today are in that movie. And it shows that even today, 60 years later, people associated with this program, they're enthusiasts.
Yeah, they are. And I understand that Jim Farley not only participates, but he's pretty good.
Yeah, that helps.
Right? I mean, he's pretty good.
The last thing you want is your CEO to pile into a pile of tires at 150 miles an hour. That's true.
And then we have somebody else that represents his family and Ford Motor Company very well, and I know you know who that is, but they do it through Ford under drag racing.
Well, and unfortunately, we just lost the NMRA, the National Mustang Racing Association, just went out of business because the hurricane kind of ruined a couple of their events. Yeah. But there are all sorts of young people into drag racing. A lot of people don't understand the appeal of that, going to a drag track and just for on a Saturday night at the drag strip and taking an old SN95 Mustang and going out. A lot of one of our gals, Autumn Schwalbe, she's a young Fox body racer, and people coming up through the ranks. Drag racing is still a grassroots sport.
Well, obviously the person I'm speaking of is Bobby Tasca.
Oh, sure. And Tasca's whole, if it weren't for Tasca, there would be no Cobra Jet. The 1969 Cobra Jet.
I didn't know that. How did they influence that?
Well, because he at his dealership, he was selling 390 Mustang GTs, and the guys would buy them and go out and race on the street and come back and say, Mr. Tasca, I lost. I want my money back. And so what he would do is he'd go into the Ford Racing parts catalog and hop up the cars and put, he said, we have a police interceptor 428 that'll run with anybody. And he was the one that pushed Henry Ford II to let Ford Racing use the parts and let's build a Cobra Jet for a production model, and forced Ford's hand after getting people who read magazines to write into Ford, we need the Cobra Jet. And it was Bob Tasca that put that motor together. Had all the parts on hand and showed Ford you could build this and sell it. And by God, if it weren't for Tasca, it wouldn't have happened.
Now that's really incredible. Now Bobby Tasca III is a friend of mine. I've served on a couple of boards with him. His passion's unbelievable. He actually flies his own plane also. But so the Bob Tasca you're speaking of, would that be the original Bob Tasca?
Yeah, Bob Tasca Sr. Yep.
Senior. Yep. And so what a great legacy and heritage and story that is.
And to this day,
I'm not even sure I realized how deep that went.
Oh yeah, and to this day, the Tasca family is still out there representing Ford in the highest level of drag racing. I mean,
they are, and Bobby does well. He races himself.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the speed of one of those dragsters?
Oh, they'll do well over 200 miles an hour. I mean, they're just. I mean, they'll give you a facelift when they launch.
Oh my heavens.
You just got to pin your face back. You come back, you're coming out, you look like a Hollywood movie star when you're out of there.
Well, we're going to tag Bobby Tasca on this when we post this. We'll tag Bobby Tasca and we'll tag Jim Farley and see if we get any responses to it. It'll be pretty fun to watch what they are. But that is the passion. That is what drives Ford Motor Company, is the passion for their vehicles. Downstairs in my showroom, I have a Ford GT. It's got 10 miles on it. People say, are you going to sell it? No, I'm not going to sell it. It's just it's over. It's done. You can't get it again. And so like I need to build a crazy size showroom to keep all the cars I want to keep. But it's my passion for sure.
Well, it's good for Schultz Ford because the fact that you host the Greater Pittsburgh Mustang Club and they have a place they can go where they trust, and you put on a hell of a party out there at the showroom, and we drove in from Dearborn.
There did all that, and combined with Chelsea and Kara, our digital team, they really did. It can be bigger, better always, but it was really surprising to see the turnout this year.
Well, and there's so many Mustang clubs all across the United States. To Bubba's point, they're in every town,
Yeah.
and all through the summer, at any given Sunday or Saturday, you'll see a Mustang club having a car show at a Ford dealership. And I always like to point out, well, my grandmother has a Camry. And I said, well, where's the Camry show this weekend? Where do you have a car show?
Great response.
Where do you have a car show for appliances? You have it at Home Depot? I mean, where do you have it?
Great response.
Yeah. I mean,
where's the Camry show this weekend?
Yeah,
that's great.
The passion, we don't sell appliances. Mustangs are not there. People said, well, my kid's got a Honda Civic and if the trade-in value was higher. You don't trade in a Mustang after you buy it. You figure out which kid gets it when you die.
Ooh, boy, you're getting, I love all these lines.
Yeah. Well, do you trade in your dog? No, it's a part of the family. When you buy a Mustang, it becomes part of the family. And, even though the Mustangs may come and go, it's the people you meet in the Mustang community, the Mustang hobby, which is incredible. When you buy a Mustang, you walk into Schultz Ford, you buy that car. You're not just buying a car, you're buying a lifestyle if you so choose. And you can go down with Myrtle Beach with Bubba and go watch people have fun with a car that makes, I hate to say this to everybody that doesn't have one, but it just makes Mustang owners cooler than everybody else.
Amen.
John Clor, thank you for being on Cars, Stars, and Everything in Between.
You got it. Thanks for having me, guys.
John, thank you. What a wonderful guest.
Oh, we had